From secretly paying hospital bills for hundreds of strangers to making underground adult films before becoming a star, Joan Crawford's life was filled with shocking contradictions that would make even today's celebrities blush. This Hollywood legend's obsession with cleanliness was so extreme she scrubbed hotel bathrooms herself, while her business acumen turned her into a Pepsi-Cola powerhouse who feuded with Coca-Cola executives at dinner parties. Here are 15 things you never knew about Joan Crawford. Fact 1. She made pornographic stag films. Before Joan Crawford became one of Hollywood's most glamorous stars, she allegedly appeared in underground adult films to survive during her struggling early years in the 1920s. The most famous of these rumored films was called The Plumber, a short, black-and-white silent movie that she supposedly made with comedian Harry Green. According to accounts from people who claim to have seen it, the film followed the simple and crude formula typical of stag movies from that era, with basic storylines that were more comedic than erotic. These pornographic films were made for private stag parties and underground screenings, existing in a shadowy world completely separate from legitimate Hollywood productions. The movies were short, cheaply made, and featured the jerky movements and title cards characteristic of early silent comedies. Crawford would have been paid very little for these appearances, but for a young woman desperately trying to make it in show business, even small amounts of money were crucial for survival. When Crawford later signed with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and began her rise to stardom, the studio became aware of these early films and allegedly spent considerable effort and money trying to track down and destroy all existing copies. Louis B. Mayer and the MGM publicity machine were determined to protect their investment in Crawford's wholesome image, and the existence of such material could have been catastrophic for her career during the more conservative 1930s and 40s. Despite MGM's efforts, rumors and alleged photographs from these films continued to surface throughout Crawford's career. Some blackmailers reportedly tried to extort $100,000 from the studio in 1935 in exchange for negatives they claimed to possess. Whether Crawford actually appeared in these films remains a matter of speculation and debate among film historians, but the persistent rumors became part of Hollywood's underground mythology surrounding the star's mysterious early years. Fact 2. Her name came from a contest. The legendary name Joan Crawford didn't come from the actress herself, but rather from thousands of movie fans who participated in a nationwide naming contest organized by Movie Weekly magazine in 1925. The young actress was born Lucille Fay LeSueur, but when she signed her contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, studio head Louis B. Mayer decided her real name had to go because he thought LeSueur sounded too much like the word sewer, which obviously wouldn't help sell movie tickets. Pete Smith, who was the head of publicity at MGM, worked with Movie Weekly to launch a campaign called Name the Star to find a more commercial and elegant moniker for their promising new actress. Thousands of fans across the country submitted suggestions, and the readers initially picked Joan Arden as their favorite choice. However, when the studio discovered that another actress was already using that name professionally, they had to go with the runner-up suggestion, which was Joan Crawford. Ironically, Crawford herself wasn't particularly thrilled with her new Hollywood identity and had her own preferences about how it should be used. She wanted people to pronounce her first name as Joanne rather than Joan, and she felt that the surname Crawford was too close to the word crawfish for her liking. In her private life, she actually preferred to be called by her childhood nickname Billy, which connected her to her roots as Billy Casson, the name she used during her stepfather's time in the family. The name change was so successful in boosting her popularity that MGM actually had to recall 2 films where she was still credited as Lucille LeSueur. The movies Old Clothes and The Only Thing, both from 1925, were pulled from distribution so the studio could alter the billing to feature her new stage name instead. Fact 3. She won over 100 dance trophies. Long before Joan Crawford became famous for her dramatic acting roles, she was actually a phenomenal dancer who dominated the competitive dance scene in Hollywood during the 1920s. Crawford won more than 100 cups and trophies in Charleston and Black Bottom dance competitions, establishing herself as one of the most skilled performers of these popular jazz-age dances that defined the era's nightlife and social culture. The Charleston was a fast-paced dance that involved kicking your legs and swinging your arms in syncopated rhythms, while the Black Bottom was an even more energetic dance that included complex footwork and hip movements. Both dances required incredible stamina, precision, and natural rhythm, skills that Crawford had developed during her earlier years, performing in traveling vaudeville shows and chorus lines across the country. Crawford's dancing wasn't just a hobby or occasional activity, but rather a serious part of her nightly routine during her early Hollywood years. After finishing long days of filming at MGM, she would head to glamorous night spots like the Coconut Grove, which was one of Los Angeles's most prestigious entertainment venues, located at the Ambassador Hotel. There, she would compete against other talented dancers in contests that often lasted late into the night, showcasing the athletic and artistic abilities that would later translate into her powerful screen presence. Her competitive dancing success also served as valuable networking and publicity for her budding film career, as these contests were popular social events attended by industry insiders, celebrities, and entertainment reporters. Crawford's victories in these competitions helped establish her reputation as a dynamic performer who embodied the spirit of the Roaring Twenties, making her a natural choice for the flapper roles that would define her early movie career and launch her towards stardom. Fact 4. She secretly paid for 390-plus surgeries. Joan Crawford maintained one of Hollywood's most generous and well-hidden charitable operations for decades, secretly paying hospital bills and funding surgeries for hundreds of destitute people who had worked in the film industry but fallen on hard times. In 1934, Crawford contacted Dr. William Branch, who had performed her own dental and facial procedures, and asked him to help her develop a program through which she would quietly underwrite medical expenses for anyone who had ever worked in any capacity in movies, from actors to crew members to studio employees. The arrangement was set up so that all bills would be sent directly to Crawford and paid immediately without involving her business manager, and she insisted that her name never be used, and that she receive absolutely no credit or publicity for her charitable work. The patients receiving treatment at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital, where Crawford had endowed several rooms and an entire surgical suite, never knew who was covering their medical expenses, and Crawford specifically requested that she never be told the names of the people she was helping. According to a confidential hospital report from 1939, in just the 2 years following 1937, more than 390 major surgeries were completed with Crawford covering all costs. The report noted that Joan Crawford paid the bills. She never knew the people for whom she was paying, and she didn't care. This wasn't a short-term charitable effort, but rather a commitment that continued for many years throughout her career. When Crawford's anonymous donations were eventually discovered years later, and she began receiving public praise for her generosity, she actually feigned complete ignorance about the entire enterprise, pretending she had no knowledge of the medical bill payments. This reaction demonstrated how seriously she took her commitment to keeping the charity work completely private, and how uncomfortable she was with receiving recognition for her humanitarian efforts. Fact 5. She scrubbed every hotel bathroom herself. Joan Crawford's obsession with cleanliness reached such extreme levels that she would personally scrub every hotel bathroom before using it, regardless of how prestigious or expensive the accommodation was. This compulsive behavior was part of a broader pattern of cleaning rituals that dominated Crawford's daily life, and stemmed from her traumatic childhood experiences working in laundries and being subjected to harsh living conditions during her early years. Whenever Crawford checked into any hotel room, from luxury establishments to standard accommodations, her first priority was always to thoroughly clean the bathroom facilities herself, using her own cleaning supplies and methods. She would wash her hands up to 10 times per day, wear gloves wherever she went for hygiene reasons as much as fashion, and never wear any clothing unless it had been sent to professional dry cleaners first, even if the garments were brand new. Crawford's cleaning compulsions extended far beyond just hotel bathrooms and influenced nearly every aspect of her living arrangements. She hired a German maid whom she affectionately called Mamacita, specifically because this woman refused to use modern mops and instead preferred to clean floors the old-fashioned way on her hands and knees, which aligned with Crawford's belief that you couldn't properly reach corners and crevices with standard cleaning tools. Some biographers have suggested that Crawford used her intense cleaning routines as a way to maintain control and order in her life, particularly when other aspects of her career and personal relationships felt chaotic or uncertain. Her cleaning habits also served as a form of emotional purging, helping her cope with guilt or stress from heavy drinking or complicated romantic situations. Crawford herself once said that there was a little bit of Harriet Craig in all of us, referring to the obsessively neat character she portrayed in one of her films, indicating that she was somewhat aware of how extreme her cleaning behaviors had become. Fact 6. She replaced her own daughter on TV. In October of 1968, Joan Crawford made one of the most unusual career decisions in television history when she temporarily replaced her own daughter Christina on the daytime soap opera The Secret Storm. Christina Crawford, who was 29 years old at the time, had been playing a character on the show but suddenly needed immediate medical attention for a ruptured ovarian tumor that required emergency surgery. Rather than let the producers find a temporary replacement actress or write the character out of the storyline, 63-year-old Joan Crawford contacted the show's executives and offered to step in and play her daughter's role while Christina recovered from her operation. The situation became even more bizarre because Christina's character was supposed to be 28 years old, meaning that Crawford was essentially playing someone 35 years younger than her actual age. The producers at CBS and The Secret Storm agreed to Crawford's unusual proposal, and she appeared on the show for one full week, delivering her daughter's lines and attempting to portray a character who was decades younger. According to Gloria Monty, who was the show's producer at the time, the arrangement was made specifically to ensure that Christina wouldn't lose her job permanently while she was recovering, and Crawford was trying to protect her daughter's position on the soap opera. However, Christina later wrote in her controversial memoir Mommy Dearest that when she watched her mother's televised performances from her hospital bed, it was obvious that Crawford had been drinking during the tapings. The producer Gloria Monty defended Crawford's intentions, stating that she saw Joan do everything possible to save Christina's life and job, and that Crawford only agreed to the substitution to help her daughter maintain her place on the show until she could return to work. Fact 7. She wrapped everything in plastic. Joan Crawford's obsession with cleanliness and preservation reached truly extraordinary levels in her personal living space, where she covered virtually every item in her apartment with custom-made plastic casings that made her home look more like a furniture showroom than a place where someone actually lived. Her interior designer once remarked that there were more objects wrapped in plastic in Crawford's apartment than you would find at a typical grocery store meat counter, highlighting just how extensive her protective covering system had become. Crawford didn't limit her plastic wrapping to just the obvious items like sofas and chairs that some people might cover to protect expensive upholstery. Instead, she had custom plastic encasings created for nearly everything in her home, including lampshades, decorative objects, personal accessories like hats and shoes, and even smaller household items that most people would never think to protect in such a way. This plastic covering obsession was another manifestation of Crawford's broader need to maintain absolute control over her environment and keep everything in pristine condition at all times. The custom plastic cases allowed her to preserve her belongings exactly as they were when she first acquired them, preventing any dust, wear, or damage that might occur from normal daily use or exposure to air and light over time. The plastic coverings also served a psychological purpose for Crawford, providing her with a sense of order and protection that helped her cope with the uncertainties and stresses of her professional and personal life. While many people might find such extensive plastic wrapping impractical or uncomfortable, Crawford apparently found great comfort in knowing that all of her possessions were safely sealed away from any potential contamination or deterioration, allowing her to maintain the perfect and controlled environment that her compulsive personality required. Fact 8. She gave Henry Fonda a sequin jockstrap. During the filming of Daisy Kenyon in 1947, Joan Crawford developed an intense romantic attraction to her co-star Henry Fonda and expressed her feelings in one of the most unusual ways in Hollywood history by having the movie's costume department create a custom red sequined athletic supporter as a gift for him. Crawford was known for her bold approach to pursuing men she found attractive, but this particular gesture stood out even by her own standards for unconventional romantic overtures. Henry Fonda was famous for being the strong, silent type both on screen and in real life, and when Crawford presented him with the elaborate sequined undergarment in a gift box, he initially didn't even acknowledge the unusual present or respond to her romantic advance. Fonda's lack of reaction didn't discourage Crawford, however, and she decided to take a more direct approach to get his attention and make her intentions absolutely clear. The situation became even more awkward during the filming of a scene where Fonda's character had to carry Crawford's character up a flight of stairs. While they were shooting this romantic moment, Crawford leaned in close to Fonda and whispered an invitation for him to model the sequined athletic supporter for her in private, essentially asking him to wear her gift during an intimate encounter away from the movie set. Fonda later recalled that when Crawford whispered this surprising invitation during the scene, he nearly dropped her because he was so shocked by her bold proposition. The incident became part of Hollywood folklore as an example of Crawford's fearless and sometimes inappropriate pursuit of her romantic interests, demonstrating that she was willing to use her star power and creative resources to pursue the men who caught her attention, regardless of how they might react to her advances. Fact 9. She showered 4 times daily. Joan Crawford's beauty and hygiene routine was so extreme that she took at least 4 showers every single day, and on days when she had nothing else scheduled, she would often take even more showers just because she enjoyed the feeling of being completely clean. This excessive bathing was part of an elaborate daily beauty regimen that Crawford believed was essential for maintaining her glamorous appearance and movie star image throughout her decades-long career. Crawford's shower routine wasn't just about basic cleanliness but was actually a complex ritual that included specific techniques she had developed over the years to maintain her skin and overall appearance. She would often scrub her elbows with bars of soap and special brushes, and she kept smaller brushes near her bathroom sink specifically for cleaning her fingernails multiple times throughout the day, treating every aspect of personal hygiene as a serious and time-consuming process. The multiple daily showers were also connected to Crawford's broader obsession with cleanliness that affected nearly every aspect of her daily life and living arrangements. She viewed staying perfectly clean as both a professional necessity and a personal compulsion, believing that her success as a movie star depended partly on maintaining an absolutely flawless appearance that required constant attention and maintenance. Crawford's bathing habits became so well known among her friends and colleagues that they were often mentioned in interviews and articles about her lifestyle during the 1940s and 50s. According to reports from that time period, Crawford would shower at least 4 times on a typical day, but if she had a free day with no work commitments or social obligations, she might take additional showers simply because she found the process relaxing and enjoyed the sensation of hot water and the ritual of thorough cleaning that helped her feel refreshed and ready for whatever challenges her demanding career might bring. Fact 10. She became a Pepsi-Cola board member. When Joan Crawford married Alfred Steele, the chairman and chief executive officer of Pepsi-Cola Corporation, in 1955, she didn't just gain a husband but also transformed herself into one of the most dedicated corporate executives in American business history. Crawford joined the company's board of directors and threw herself into promoting Pepsi with the same intensity and determination that had made her a Hollywood legend, traveling more than 100,000 miles around the world as the company's most glamorous goodwill ambassador. Crawford earned $60,000 per year as a board member, which was substantial compensation at the time, but her commitment to Pepsi went far beyond just collecting a salary. She demanded that Pepsi products receive prominent placement in all of her films, turned every public appearance into a promotional opportunity for the brand, and used her celebrity status to open doors for the company in international markets, where her movie star fame carried significant influence with local business leaders and consumers. When Alfred Steele died suddenly of a heart attack in 1959, Crawford faced pressure from some company executives who expected her to step down from the board and fade quietly into widowhood. Instead, Crawford absolutely refused to give up her position and continued serving as an active board member for another 14 years, maintaining her rigorous travel schedule and promotional activities well into the 1970s. Crawford's dedication to Pepsi became so intense that she once famously declared, "Every time you drink a Pepsi, I want you to think of Joan Crawford. If you drink Coke, you can think of those polar bears." She continued working tirelessly for the company until 1973, when she was finally forced to retire at the official age of 65, having spent nearly 2 decades building Pepsi's brand recognition and helping establish the company as a major competitor to Coca-Cola in markets around the globe. Fact 11. She sent rival executives Coca-Cola. Joan Crawford's loyalty to Pepsi-Cola was so intense that it led to one of the most amusing corporate rivalries in business history, involving a playful but pointed exchange of competing soft drinks whenever she encountered executives from Coca-Cola at restaurants or social events. During her time serving on Pepsi's board of directors, Crawford would engage in a ritualistic battle of corporate one-upmanship whenever she happened to be dining at the same establishment as the current president of Coca-Cola or other high-ranking officials from the rival company. The routine worked like an elaborate game of corporate chess, where both sides would acknowledge their business rivalry through carefully orchestrated beverage deliveries across the restaurant dining room. When Crawford spotted Coca-Cola executives at their table, she would discreetly arrange for a waiter to send them a bottle of Coca-Cola as a tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement of their brand loyalty, while simultaneously making it clear that she knew exactly who they were and what company they represented. The Coca-Cola executives, not to be outdone by Crawford's theatrical gesture, would respond in kind by having their waiter deliver a bottle of Pepsi to her table, creating a back-and-forth exchange that other restaurant patrons probably found both entertaining and bewildering. This corporate gamesmanship demonstrated that even though the two companies were fierce business competitors fighting for market share and consumer loyalty, the individual executives could maintain a sense of humor about their professional rivalry. These playful exchanges became a regular occurrence during Crawford's years as a Pepsi board member and reflected her complete dedication to representing her company's interests in every possible social and business situation. The ritual also showed how Crawford's background as an entertainer influenced her approach to corporate responsibilities, turning even casual encounters with business rivals into opportunities for memorable theatrical moments that reinforced brand awareness and company loyalty. Fact 12. She adopted from a baby trafficking ring. In 1947, Joan Crawford decided to expand her family by adopting 2 more children, twin girls named Cindy and Kathy, but she unknowingly used an adoption agency that was later exposed as one of the most notorious human trafficking operations in American history. Crawford worked with the Tennessee Children's Home Society to arrange these adoptions, believing she was dealing with a legitimate organization that helped place children with loving families who could provide them with better opportunities. The Tennessee Children's Home Society was run by Georgia Tann, who appeared to be a respectable social worker dedicated to child welfare, but was actually operating an illegal baby-selling scheme that separated thousands of children from their birth families through deception, coercion, and outright theft. Tann's operation involved taking children from poor families by telling parents their children had died or convincing them they couldn't properly care for their kids, then selling these children to wealthy families who paid substantial fees believing they were making legitimate adoptions. Crawford had no way of knowing at the time that the agency was involved in these criminal activities, as Tann had built a reputation among wealthy clients as someone who could discreetly arrange adoptions for prominent families who wanted to avoid the lengthy and public processes typically required by legitimate adoption agencies. Many other celebrities and wealthy individuals also used Tann's services during the 1930s and 40s without realizing they were participating in an illegal operation. The Tennessee Children's Home Society scandal wasn't fully exposed until years later when investigations revealed that Tann had stolen and sold an estimated 5,000 children over several decades. By the time the truth came out, Crawford's twins Cindy and Kathy were already adults, and there was no way to undo the traumatic separations that had occurred when they were infants, leaving many families permanently destroyed by Tann's criminal enterprise. Fact 13. She made Bette Davis suffer physically. During the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, Joan Crawford deliberately made herself as heavy as possible when Bette Davis had to drag her across the room in a key scene, knowing full well that Davis suffered from chronic back problems that made such physical demands extremely painful. Crawford accomplished this cruel trick by wearing a special weighted belt underneath her costume, essentially turning what should have been a manageable acting challenge into a torturous ordeal for her co-star and longtime rival. The scene in question required Davis, playing the deranged Baby Jane Hudson, to drag Crawford's character Blanche out of bed and across the bedroom floor, simulating the physical abuse that Jane inflicted on her wheelchair-bound sister. Director Robert Aldrich later explained that there were techniques actors could use to make such scenes easier on whoever was doing the carrying or dragging, but Crawford deliberately chose not to cooperate with these methods because she wanted Davis to suffer. Crawford's vindictive behavior during this scene was part of the escalating tension between the two actresses that had been building throughout the production, with both stars engaging in various acts of professional sabotage and personal cruelty toward each other. Some reports suggest that Crawford also made herself dead weight during the dragging scene and even stopped to cough deliberately in the middle of takes, forcing Davis to start over while carrying Crawford's deliberately heavier body. By the time the scene was finally completed after multiple takes, Davis was screaming in agony from the strain on her already damaged back, while Crawford calmly walked back to her dressing room as if nothing had happened. The incident became one of the most infamous examples of the real-life hatred between the two actresses, spilling over into their professional work, demonstrating how their personal rivalry could turn even routine filming into an opportunity for calculated revenge and physical punishment. Fact 14. She set dinner places for her dead husband. After Alfred Steele died suddenly of a heart attack in May of 1959, Joan Crawford began displaying one of the most poignant and unusual expressions of grief in Hollywood history by continuing to set a place for him at her dinner table for years following his death. This ritual involved laying out a complete place setting with plates, silverware, glasses, and napkins in Steele's usual spot, as if he might walk through the door at any moment and join her for their evening meal together. Crawford and Steele had been married for only 4 years when he passed away, but their relationship had been one of the most stable and genuinely happy periods in Crawford's often turbulent personal life. Steele was not just her husband but also her business partner and the person who had introduced her to the corporate world through his position as chairman and chief executive officer of Pepsi-Cola, giving Crawford a new sense of purpose and identity beyond her acting career. The empty place setting became a daily reminder of the profound loss Crawford felt after Steele's unexpected death, and friends and visitors to her home would often notice the unused plates and utensils that remained untouched throughout their meals. This behavior reflected Crawford's difficulty in accepting that Steele was truly gone, and her need to maintain some connection to their shared domestic routines that had brought her comfort and stability during their marriage. Crawford's dinner table ritual continued for an extended period after Steele's death, demonstrating how deeply his loss affected her emotional well-being and daily life. The practice also revealed a more vulnerable and sentimental side of Crawford's personality that contrasted sharply with her reputation as a tough, calculating Hollywood businesswoman, showing that beneath her carefully constructed public image was someone who could be devastated by the loss of genuine love and companionship. Fact 15. Steven Spielberg's first Hollywood direction. Joan Crawford's appearance in a segment of the 1969 television anthology pilot Night Gallery marked a historic moment in entertainment history because it was the very first time that a young 22-year-old director named Steven Spielberg had the opportunity to direct a professional actor in a Hollywood production. This collaboration between the aging movie legend and the future filmmaking icon represented a passing of the torch between two different generations of entertainment industry talent. The Night Gallery pilot was created by Rod Serling, who had previously found success with The Twilight Zone, and it featured 3 separate horror stories that would eventually lead to a regular television series. Crawford appeared in the segment titled Eyes, playing a wealthy blind woman who undergoes an experimental procedure to temporarily gain sight, only to discover that her newfound vision comes with terrifying consequences that she never anticipated. Spielberg was still largely unknown at the time and had been hired to direct Crawford's segment despite having very little professional experience, making this assignment both an incredible opportunity and an enormous challenge for the aspiring filmmaker. Crawford, who was then in her 60s and nearing the end of her legendary career, reportedly treated the young director with respect and professionalism, helping to establish a positive working relationship that would benefit both of their careers. During the filming process, Spielberg presented Crawford with a thoughtful gift that acknowledged both her star status and her corporate connections. A single red rose placed inside a Pepsi-Cola bottle, recognizing her position on the soft drink company's board of directors. Crawford was so impressed with Spielberg's work and potential that she continued to send him congratulatory notes throughout his rise to fame, with the final note arriving just 2 weeks before her death in 1977, demonstrating her continued support for the director whose career she had helped launch.